Hey kids, this week we're looking at a color wheel from Frans Gerritsen's Theory and Practice of Color from 1975. Ta-da! Gerritsen is a Dutch designer and artist and consultant and educator, active 50s, 60s, 70s. He did his research. You can see all these various historical color models. And he was very much into the science of color. One of his key goals was to make the science of color, color perception and color measurement, accessible and useful to artists and graphic designers. And so I want to focus on not exactly this wheel, but actually the preceding pages where he kind of builds the wheel with you, the viewer. It's an interactive kind of book. So by the end of this, you're going to understand what these little graphic devices mean and why, he's a big supporter of kind of the CMY RGB way of looking at color. So I'm going to flip back one page, and you're going to see on this side, in the middle here, these three curves represent sort of the normalized functions in colorimetry that represent what the three different types of cone cells see. It's not exactly that, but it's sort of a translation of that into math. So the blue bump here, the Z function, is the representative of sort of what our short cone cells respond to in the spectrum, the shorter wavelengths. This bump here, the Y function, is what our medium cone cells respond to in the spectrum. You can see it's sort of like spread over the whole spectrum, but peaks in the middle. And then this curve is the translation of what our long cone cells respond to. But again, that's not actually our cone cell sensitivities. That's a mathematical model. These are the color matching functions from the CIE. So anyway, it's a way for us to translate the ranges of the spectrum that our different types of cone cells respond to a mathematical model that allows us to do additive color mixing and different things like that. So that's very technical, but sort of summed up in this very neat package, so that he can then say, all right, if we're looking at something yellow, we can simplify that reflection and absorption curve to just kind of like down on the blue side and up on the green and the red side. Magenta is going to have sort of a dip in the middle of its spectral curve. And so you can represent that this way, only the middle is kind of dipping down. And then a cyan pigment is going to sort of be reflecting in the blue and green regions of the spectrum, if you want to think of it that way, but absorbing the red regions. So you could do that this way, 2 up, 1 down. So given all of that, we can kind of start making sense out of it as we flip these acetate sheets over. This one has a yellow filter on only half of the circle, and it also has these devices here. So what it's saying is, this acetate sheet is representing the blockage of blue light or of short wavelength light. And so all of these on this side are representing, well, the white paper is still showing through, so I've got the whole spectrum, green, blue, red. But on this side of the circle, since the blue wavelengths are being blocked, I'm only seeing green, red, right? To understand that this yellow half of the circle is in fact blocking the blue part of the spectrum, let's take this, which has a strong like ultramarine blue pigment on one side. And if I put it under here, you can see it basically turns black, right? So those short blue wavelengths that pigment is reflecting are being blocked by this. If I slide it over, you can see on this side they're being allowed to pass through, right? All right, so that's giving us yellow. What happens if we now add the next sheet? This one's got a magenta filter built in. And so now look at this. This top half of the circle is still the way it was before. So I'm blocking blue, but now look at this one. What's going on here? So these two guys, look, their green or middle part is being blocked out. But because this area is under both the yellow and the magenta, both the blue here and the green here are being blocked out, and only the red is passing through. And so this is basically the explanation for why does yellow and magenta subtractively mix to red in terms of these simplified spectral diagrams. I just think that's so perfect. Let's complete the circle here. So this one you can see has the cyan filter built in. I'm going to flip that over, and now look at that. We get the whole color wheel. We get green, where only the middle of the spectrum is passing through, cyan, where the middle and the short wavelengths are passing through, violet here, or blue violet, or ultramarine, whatever you want to call it, depending on your school of thought, right? It's combining with the magenta. So the magenta is blocking the middle of the spectrum. This guy's blocking the long wavelengths. And so all that's left is the short wavelengths. And so you get RGB CMY in this neat package. Now that that's been established, we can look at these intermediary hues as actually kind of like, here a little bit of red is showing through, here a little bit more red is showing through. And if we go over to orange, now a little less green is showing through, a little less green is showing through. So all these intermediate hues can still be explained by that system. So that like basic color math gives us that circle, but he also uses those visual devices of the simplified spectral curves to show us color math in different ways. So this is supposed to show sort of subtractive mixing, right? I start with white, the light's going through, this filter is deleting the red, this filter is deleting the green, and then finally, if I block the light, nothing is left, right? This side is showing additive mixture, right? I start with nothing. If I add blue light, if I add green light, if I add red light, going up. And then here's all your little math equations along the bottom. I'm not going to say this book is like ahead of its time, because RGB CMY thinking, that had been around since like the 1860s. But this is, in 1975, a really great, clean way to explain these ideas to the layperson, especially when you realize that that's 3 years before HSL for computer graphics had even been proposed, right? That gets proposed in 1978. So this guy is thinking in terms of color that would become basic and essential to like color pickers and RGB CMY thinking that I think most of us kind of just take for granted now if we're working in graphic design or computer graphics. So yeah, that's Gerritsen's. Tune in next time. I think we're going to look at the split primary palette. Ooh boy.